The Bank of Japan is walking a tightrope right now, and they realise that if the yen gets too strong, they're going to hurt the export market. James Hyerczyk, FX Empire. With the deadline for the US government's spending bill fast approaching and the threat of a government shutdown looming, the House Rules Committee in a late-night meeting voted 8-2 to send legislation to extend the deadline by a week to the full House of Representatives for debate and votes on passage. James, do you think this will be successful, and what implications do you see this having?
I think it's going to be successful. As you mentioned, there's not a lot of debate with this particular bill, as we've seen in previous years. I think that both parties understand the importance of raising the debt ceiling, and I think that there's no question that the legislatures believe that they're not going to let this become an issue. At this time, the country also has reserves. There's plenty of cash flow, seeing how the tax season just ended. So I think there's not the kind of urgency we've seen in the past. And so I think even if they give them a week, it's going to, that time's going to be used well, and that a solid plan will be implemented later. But right now, I think the government is comfortable with the process, and I think they believe they're fine, even if there is a problem, because there's plenty of cash flow for it to run into the summer.
This week, Marine Le Pen stepped away from her far-right party, the National Front, a symbolic and strategic campaign move. Although the polls do see Emmanuel Macron winning the election overall, he has lost some ground. Do you think we can trust the polls when they've continued to miss the mark?
I think in this case we have to trust the polls. They've been pretty accurate throughout the process. In the last week of the first round, we did see some movement by Le Pen, and that was related to the terrorist event. We may see her gain some steam if such events happen again. But right now, it looks as if it's a done deal. I don't see any surprises. I do think the market's going to get nervous if the lead gets the gap between the two gets smaller, perhaps even low single digits. But right now, I think this is a non-event, just looking at how currency markets and the gold markets have recovered and reacted to the first round. So I think the polls got it right this time.
And James, unsurprisingly, the Bank of Japan left the interest rate unchanged at minus 0.1%. However, the central bank raised their economic growth forecast to 1.6% for fiscal 2017, from an earlier projection of a 1.5% expansion due to rising exports. Do you think this is a realistic figure?
I think the Bank of Japan has it right as far as economic growth is concerned. They're walking a tightrope right now, and they realize that if the yen gets too strong, or they do anything to make the yen too strong, they're going to hurt the export market. As long as exports continue to grow, I think the growth targets are a reasonable possibility. And so they had really no choice to raise the outlook for growth, because if they expect the exports to grow, then certainly the overall economy should grow along with it.
Thank you for joining us today, James. That's all for our weekly wrap-up, but be sure to tune in on Monday for our week ahead analysis. See you then.